Hey, what's happening, guys? What is going on? You guys have tuned into Rules for Rebels. Today is Tuesday, January 9th, 2023, and we got a bunch of news to share with you guys today. What are we going to be talking about in today's video? The Andrew Tate story continues to get weirder and more interesting. Not only was either he or his brother, we're not really clear who, supposedly rushed to the hospital last night, but now we're learning that two of the women who Romania is claiming are victims of Andrew Tate are actually saying that they're not victims. They've made it clear they're not victims. Andrew Tate's a great guy, and they're actually very annoyed at this point that Romania has been dragging this out for 9 months. We're going to go over the markets today. We're going to be talking about sitting on cash versus being in the markets. Bob Iger is calling Disney employees back into the office 4 days a week, kind of continuing this trend of remote work coming to an end. BlackRock is saying this recession will be worse than anyone foretold. Credit card debt is the highest this century. We're going to talk about the real estate markets, home builders, rental prices falling down, the used car price collapse that's going on right now. Vice had an article, weed dealers in the UK are getting branding consultants to come up with packaging and promote them on social media, Walmart making drone deliveries, and a whole lot more. I'm going to try to work through today's video pretty quickly, although we do got a lot of news to cover. Let's start with the markets today. The Dow closed down 112 points. NASDAQ up 66 points, S&P 500 down 3%, and crypto's kind of mixed. Bitcoin is up quite a bit in the last week. It seems that the markets continue to believe that rates are going to come down. They're not going to come down. The Atlanta Fed president, as well as somebody else at the Fed, came out today. They said they expect rates to hit 5 to 5.25%, and hold there through 2024. So there is no pivot coming. Rates aren't going to stop rising, and they're not going to come down anytime soon. And Citi's CEO came out and predicted that rates will be hiked to 5.5% by May. Now, let's talk a little bit about this Andrew Tate story. This story has been very weird. A lot of kind of cloudiness around the initial arrest and things like that. Last night, somehow Andrew Tate was tweeting. I'm not sure if that's his people tweeting, if he somehow has a phone in jail or the hospital. And it was really weird how the news was being reported. The news was being reported that Andrew Tate or his brother, they weren't really clear who, was rushed to the hospital last night. We also had conflicting reports. Some reports stated that he was attacked. Other reports stated that he had a pre-existing health condition that had flared up. But the story has gotten even weirder in recent hours. So two of the quote-unquote victims who Romania claims are victims of Andrew Tate's, quote-unquote trafficking, have said they have made it clear that they are not victims. They said this isn't fair to Andrew Tate. Andrew Tate's lawyer also came out and has said that there's zero evidence against him. And again, two of the girls who Romania is claiming were victims are saying that it's pretty pathetic that Romania has been looking into this for 9 months and still doesn't understand it. And they're saying at this point they're annoyed. Why is Romania going after Andrew Tate? Is the U.S. government pressuring them to do so? Andrew Tate has also talked, pretty openly about how Romania is a corrupt country, and he can get away with a little bit more there. Are they upset about that? Not really clear. I have a feeling that this whole Andrew Tate story is going to wind up going away. He's going to get released, and nothing's going to come of it, but we'll have to wait and see how all that shakes out. Let's talk about what are you guys planning on doing with your money in 2023? I know we all hate sitting on cash. The Fed and the government tell us inflation is 7%, 9%. I think most of us realize it's, much higher than that when you're paying 37% more for eggs, 30% more for beef, 16% more for booze. It's kind of hard to believe that inflation is 7 or 9%. But even if we believe that inflation is at 7 or 9%, you're pretty much guaranteed to lose 7 to 9% sitting on cash. But what else do you go into? When we look at a couple other asset classes, global high yield down 12.7%, U.S. fixed income down 13%, equity down 14%, U.S. large caps down 18%, U.S. small caps down 20%, REITs down 25%. Where do you go with your money? What are you doing with your money? I know right now Wealthfront, I think, is paying over 3% on their money market accounts. So I think that's probably as good as it gets right now. This is an interesting story. So we talked in some recent videos about how Bob Iger, the former CEO of Disney, has returned to being the CEO of Disney. He just recently came out and said that Disney workers must return to the office 4 days a week. We are seeing a lot of companies calling employees back into the office, but this is one of the stricter ones that we've seen. Salesforce, a company who for the past couple years has been touting the benefits of remote work and how great it is, recently called everybody back to the Salesforce Tower in San Francisco, but I believe they're requiring people be in the office Tuesday, Wednesday, and Thursday, so 3 days a week. So Bob Iger is a little bit stricter than everybody else. Disney is in a lot of trouble financially. It was recently reported that their direct-to-consumer business lost $4 billion in 2022. And from Disney's recent filings, they say they expect losses to narrow in 2023. Keep that in mind. They didn't say they expect losses to stop or they expect profitability. They expect losses to narrow. So they're going to continue losing money. They're just not going to lose as much money. And then they went on to say we will achieve profitability sometime in 2024. That could be the beginning of 2024. That could be the end of 2024. We saw what Elon Musk did when he wanted to lay off employees. He called everybody back into the office, and you get a pretty hefty chunk of people to quit. Some companies who have called people back into the office have seen as many as a third of workers quit. Here's the problem. All the good jobs are going away. All the full-time jobs are going away. And the jobs that we're getting are part-time, low wage, no benefits, no future jobs. We talked about in a video the other day, I think we had lost 1,000 full-time jobs, and we picked up, if I remember off the top of my head, I think we picked up 679,000 part-time jobs. All these people who are maybe thinking about quitting their jobs because they don't want to go back into the office, there may not be a better job for you to go back to, and there almost certainly won't be a remote job for you to find if this trend winds up continuing. We'll see what this all means. Disney is supposed to be a friendly company, a happy company. They certainly don't want to announce layoffs. It's a bad look for a company. It makes people think you're in trouble. I think people already realize that Disney is in trouble. But I'm thinking that Bob Iger and Disney are hoping that a substantial portion of their workers wind up leaving voluntarily, and they don't wind up having to do a mass layoff. But I'm pretty certain that we will see layoffs from Disney in 2023. This is kind of old news, but BlackRock continues to tout this. They say that this recession will be worse than anyone foretold. They said, unlike past recessions, buying the dip will not work. The only way to tame inflation is a deep recession. The rich will be fine. The poor and the middle class will be screwed. And again, BlackRock says the only way to tame inflation is to, and this is a quote, is to crush the economy into a severe recession. And the living standard that you have enjoyed for most of your life, if not the past couple of years, that is coming to an end. If we look at the amount of credit card debt Americans are in, November credit card debt was the fourth highest of the century, and the average interest rate on a credit card right now is 19.07%. Now let's talk about real estate. Real estate makes up 17% of the total economy. We're going to get into some more real estate stuff in a second here, but when we think of real estate slowing down, it's not as simple as, oh shucks, houses aren't selling. Real estate makes up almost 17% of our total economy. I think it's 6.8% or 16.8% or 16.9%. Basically 17% of all economic activity in this country is real estate. So if real estate crashes, 17% of our economy comes to a screeching halt. Another thing you got to keep in mind is 70% of our economy is a consumer economy. When people see real estate down, when people see the Zillow estimate of their house down, they feel the squeeze, right? They realize the economy is getting bad. They tighten up. When we have an economy that's based 70% on consumer spending and people tighten up, what happens? Like if we weren't already in a recession, that is certainly going to force us into a recession. And when you look at 70% of our economy being a consumer economy, plus 17% of our economy being real estate, that's 87% of our entire economy. And I think that just kind of highlights how ugly things could really get. Home builders are buying down rates for buyers for 2 years, kind of back during the 2006-2008 crash. We had the the ARM loans, the ARM mortgages. So what's happening now is home builders are buying down rates for people because otherwise people won't buy homes. So you have, I was going to say a cheap rate. It's not even a cheap rate. You have a lower rate for 2 years, but at the end of that 2 years, you're reverting back up to those high rates again. Where are we going to be in 3 years? Will rates be down in 3 years? Will you have a job in 3 years? Will we be in a multi-year long recession or depression in 3 years? All this remains to be seen, but things could be really ugly when these 2-year rate buy-downs come to an end. Bloomberg says the rental market is headed towards a hard landing. According to Apartment List, rents nationally fell every month of the fourth quarter of this year, and the national apartment vacancy rate rose to 5.9% in December, the highest since April of 2021, and that rate has been rising 0.2% month over month over month. And this is happening while there's more apartments under construction than there has been in the past 50 years. We also, I think in a video yesterday, we talked about how Airbnb is cracking down. Not Airbnb. Cities are cracking down on Airbnb hosts. So what winds up happening if all these Airbnb hosts start getting cracked down on by the city and they say, oh, we better go back to traditional leases or long-term leases, right? 6 months or a year. Typically, short-term rentals paid much better than the traditional lease, and now we're seeing traditional leases falling as well. So if somebody is over-leveraged with a bunch of Airbnbs that they, for whatever reason, need to convert into long-term rentals, people are in trouble. Kind of the where we're at right now, I've talked about this in recent videos, real estate is at a stalemate. Sellers don't want to sell unless they're in a position where they're absolutely forced to sell because prices are down and there's not a whole lot of buyers out there. And buyers don't want to buy at these high prices and at these high rates. So it's looking like March through August, that's when most people buy homes, most people move, especially families and people with kids who don't want to have to switch schools or switch school districts in the middle of the year. That's when most people are buying. So March through August should be a good indicator and will determine how ugly things are going to get. And if things get really, really ugly, it's looking like maybe the end of 2023 is going to be one of the best times to buy a home. Some news coming out of Inland Empire in California. Home buying tumbles 45%. And that brings us into talking about used cars. Used car prices recently saw the largest decline in history, the largest decline of all time. The Manheim Used Vehicle Index was down 14.9% from a year ago. And if you look at how much the major auto manufacturer sales are down, GM down 26%, Ford down 28%, Honda down 40%, Nissan down 50%. I think I mentioned this stat in a video from the other day, but one interesting thing is Hyundai actually expects to sell 10% more cars in 2023. Between 2020 and 2022, we saw the price of used cars rise 44%. Banks were giving people loans at these inflated prices. And what's going to happen when a lot of these people lose their jobs, wind up needing to get out from under these cars, and the car is worth less than they owe? The used car market is going to be flooded with cars. There's going to be plenty of cheap used cars out there. And if GM sales are already down 26%, Ford down 28%, Honda down 40%, Nissan down 50%, what do you think is going to happen to new car sales when the market is flooded with cheap used cars? They're going to go down even worse. And what's going to happen to these companies? We talked about this in the video yesterday. China has reopened to travelers. I don't know anybody in their right mind who would go to China, but China has reopened to travelers. And because China is moving again, because China is back open, they're anticipating a 20% surge in oil demand. What do you think that's going to do to gas prices here in the States? It's likely going to drive them up. China is also in talks with Saudi Arabia to start buying oil in Chinese yuan. Russia is starting to deal a lot more with the BRICS nations. The world is kind of being divided up between who's going to support the U.S. in this kind of fake war over in Ukraine and Russia, and who either sides with Russia or who's a poor company who can't afford to take these emotional or woke stands on issues. But things are going to get really ugly in the coming year. Okay, this is kind of a crazy story. U.S. Consumer Safety and Protection, the U.S. Consumer Safety and Protection Commission of the federal government is talking about banning natural gas stoves amid health fears. They say that gas stoves release nitrogen dioxide, carbon dioxide, and fine particulate matter. I'd like to hear from you guys. How many of you guys have a gas stove? How many of you guys have an electric stove? How many of you guys have no stove at all? In homes that I go to, whether it's friends, family, I would say literally 100% of the people I know have gas stoves. Personally, I hate electric stoves. I think I had an electric stove in one apartment. It takes forever to heat up. I really just prefer gas. I like cooking. I feel like I have more control with gas, and I really prefer gas. I was kind of surprised to learn that I think it's only like 44% of homes or something like that have gas over electric. I would think that it was, the vast majority. I don't know, just kind of crazy. I really don't see gas stoves being banned, but I thought that was kind of a crazy and interesting story. I'm not going to go into too much detail on this story, but you guys can check out the article if you find this topic interesting. Apparently over in the UK, where marijuana is illegal, marijuana dealers are actually getting brand consultants to help with their social media accounts and to kind of help design flashy packaging. I normally get my weed from, some friends and people like that who grow, or I'll head out to Michigan. But I do know a lot of like the local dealers and things like that will have flashy packaging with cartoons and celebrities and kind of crazy names. So it's kind of interesting that over in the UK, that these weed dealers are getting brand consultants to kind of help come up with designs for packaging and everything else. I thought that was an interesting story, and you can catch that one on Vice if you want to read more about it. Walmart made over 6,000 drone deliveries in 2022. Walmart drones operate in 7 states via 36 different drone delivery hubs. I've never really looked into this too much. Like, how big of a package can a drone carry? Like, if you live in one of these states where these Walmart drones operate, do you just see drones flying around the sky? Like, what happens? Does it fly to your porch and drop the package off at your front porch? If you guys know anything more about these drone deliveries, drop a comment down below. Tell me about them. I think the whole thing's fascinating, but I've never really looked into it. Next story, Matthew Burke, the CEO of Beanbox, says that companies that rely on recurring payments need to rethink their business model. And I thought this was an interesting story, especially coming off yesterday's story when we talked about Freshly, which is a business that ran entirely on subscriptions, wound up going out of business. Subscription services have been a big thing for the past couple of years, and it's great to be able to lock in a consumer to buying with you week after week after week, or month after month after month. Although as times get tough, which we're sort of in tough times, inflation is bad. We haven't even seen, technically speaking, we haven't even seen things get truly bad. But inflation is eating away at people. I think a lot of people realize we're either in a recession or heading into one. And people are trying to find places to cut costs. And it's not to say you should turn your back on subscription services or not try to focus on getting more subscription clients. But you don't want to put all your eggs in one basket. You don't want your entire business being dependent on people who are month to month or week to week subscribers. So I thought that was kind of interesting. Apparently, shoppers are abandoning Walmart after new theft deterrents, and Walgreens and CVS have followed suit in implementing some of these theft deterrents as well. And this is kind of interesting. Yesterday, I shared the news that Walgreens CEO came out and said, maybe we cried too much about shoplifting, yet they continue to put in all these theft deterrent systems. Customers say that they feel like they're being treated like thieves. And apparently when companies start locking up items and you have to go get an employee to get something out of a case for you, companies typically see a drop of 15 to 25% in sales when these items are locked up. I guess these stores, Walgreens, CVS, Target, Walmart, they're looking into some other methods where instead of having an employee unlock a case for you, you can unlock the case with your smartphone. I don't know how that stops somebody from unlocking a case with their smartphone, grabbing a bunch of items and stealing them. Although I guess in theory, maybe they can track it back to who stole it. Goldman Sachs is sacking 3,300 employees this week. And again, we haven't even truly seen bad times yet. I talked about in a video yesterday about how HR departments are debating whether to fire all people at once in a massive firing or whether to do it in waves. Now, the firings that we've seen in recent weeks and recent months, there have been some huge ones, 10% of this company, 15% of that company. Amazon just laid off 18,000. If this is a mass firing where everybody's being fired at once, okay, I guess now it's behind us, but what if this is one of the waves of firing? If Goldman Sachs laying off 3,300 people is one of 3 or 4 waves, you're looking at 9,000 people being fired, 12,000 people being fired. If Amazon laying off 18,000 people is just one wave of firing, 2 more waves of this, and you're at 56,000 people fired. Goldman says that the U.S. is in a recession and that layoffs are a lagging indicator. We talked the other day about the McDonald's corporate layoffs coming as well. Morphe, an LA-based makeup brand, is closing all 18 of its stores to focus on e-commerce. Apparently, they had considered filing for bankruptcy, but decided to just shut down the retail stores and focus on e-commerce. Some other layoffs and firings we have this week. Attentive, which is actually the company I use for my SMS marketing, they are laying off 15% of their staff. I think I touched on this one the other day, but e-commerce company Stitch Fix laid off 20% of their staff. Everlande, 17%. Salesforce, 10%. Amazon, 18,000. I kind of touched on this story the other day, but I didn't really have the details. So I talked about the employee who was inspired by the movie Office Space and wound up stealing $300,000 or $400,000 from his employer. I heard a little bit more about that story, so just a few more details. And this is kind of funny because I actually watched Office Space with my buddy this past Saturday. The company was Zulily. A Zulily employee stole over $300,000 after being inspired by the movie Office Space. The gentleman's name was Ermenildo Valdez Castro, and apparently he manipulated prices and altered a company code to divert shipping fees to his personal account. When he was confronted on this and asked for the money back, he told investigators that he can't give the money back because he invested it all into GameStop and has lost all the money. So that is the last story of the day. Hopefully you guys enjoyed today's stories. If so, give this video a thumbs up. If you guys have any interesting stories that you think I missed out on or that you want to see covered in a future video, go ahead and drop a comment down below. Either tell me about it or drop a link to it. And as always, I want to hear your guys' thoughts, comments, and opinions about anything and everything we've discussed today. So go ahead and drop a comment down below. And lastly, if you want to see more videos like this, if you want to be kept up to date on the going-ons of the economy, business, and the world, go ahead and hit that subscribe button down below and ring the bell. As always, guys, thanks for watching, and I'll catch you on the next video.